The goal of this grammar presentation is for you to be able to use the gender and number of nouns. Remember that in grammar, a noun refers to people, students, places, like school, things, like computer, or concepts, like grammar. In English, nouns have a gender, either masculine, like an actor, replaced by the pronoun he, feminine, like an actress, usually replaced by the pronoun she, or neutral, like a thing, usually replaced by the pronoun it, or a non-binary actor, usually replaced by the pronouns they. Nouns also have a number, that is either the singular, for instance, a student, or the plural, for instance, students. Gender. In French, nouns are either masculine or feminine. While most nouns referring to people have a logical gender, the gender of nouns referring to things, places, concepts is arbitrary. You need to memorize them and use the appropriate form. Now, consider the following. Étudiant, male student, and étudiante, female student. Étudiant is obviously masculine. Étudiante is obviously feminine. Now let's consider these two classroom objects. Cahier, notebook, and affiche, poster. Cahier is masculine and affiche is feminine. Here, there is no logic associated to gender. The fact that cahier, notebook is masculine and the fact that affiche, poster is feminine is completely arbitrary. So just make sure to memorize the gender. And I recommend that you associate a visual aspect to gender when you memorize the words. For instance, you can color code masculine and feminine words or use a symbol. You can also maybe associate a masculinity to masculine words and maybe a femininity to feminine words. Whatever works better for you, but make sure to memorize the gender of items, objects. Remember that some noun endings may indicate the gender of a noun, and you will learn more about those later. So, for instance, words ending in ment, like développement, enseignement, are masculine, and words ending in tion, like coopération or organisation, are feminine words. Application. Based on your memory, indicate the gender of the following words from the vocabulary list in the classroom. You can now pause the video to do the exercise. Let's go over the answers. 1. Affiche et féminin. 2. Bureau et masculin. 3. Cahier et masculin. 4. Chaise et féminin. 5. Crayon et masculin. 6. Écran et masculin. 7. Fenêtre et féminin. 8. Feuille et féminin. 9. Papier et masculin. 10. Livre et masculin. 11. Ordinateur et masculin. 12. Sac et masculin. 13. Stylo et masculin. 14. Tableau et masculin. 15. Téléphone et masculin. 16. Étudiante et féminin. Most nouns referring to people have a different masculine and feminine form. The basic rule is simply to add an E at the end of the feminine form, but there are many exceptions. For instance, un étudiant, a male student, has a feminine form of une étudiante with an extra E. Note actually the change of pronunciation, and you can repeat after me. Un étudiant, a male student. Repeat, un étudiant. Une étudiante, a female student. Une étudiante. Same thing, for instance, for un cousin, a male cousin, which has a feminine form with an extra E. Une cousine, a female cousin. So repeat the masculine form after me. Un cousin, And now repeat the feminine form after me. Une cousine. But as explained, there are many exceptions. Here are a couple. For instance, an actor, a male actor, as une actrice, as its feminine form, an actress. Same thing for un prince, a prince, which has a feminine form, which is une princesse, a princess. So here you see some relationships between the gender, the difference of gender between masculine and feminine in English, which comes actually from French. Traditionally, some nouns referring to occupations only have the masculine form, including professeur, teacher, professor, auteur, author, écrivain, writer, or ministre, minister. But there is a trend to use the feminized version. So, for instance, un professeur, a teacher, male teacher, becomes une professeure, a female teacher. So here we add an extra E to make it feminine. Same thing, un auteur, a male author, gives in some context une auteur with an extra E, but we tend to prefer une autrice, a different ending. Why? Just to make sure that the pronunciation, the feminine pronunciation is different from the masculine form. To refer to non-binary people, we will use the midpoint, the point médian, placed between the masculine and feminine form. For instance, un étudiant, masculine. As for feminine form, une étudiante with an extra E. So to make the non-binary, you're going to have a midpoint between un and the E of the indefinite article, and then you will have the midpoint right before the feminine E. This convention is part of the movement called écriture inclusive, in English, inclusive writing, and it's also used to avoid the predominance of the masculine forms over the feminine. For instance, un professeur in the masculine takes an E in the feminine to become une professeure. So the non-binary writing with the point médian, with the midpoints, is going to be as is. Midpoint right before the E and then in both the article and in the noun. So une professeur means a non-binary teacher or is used just to refer to a teacher in a more inclusive way. Un auteur, an author, as for its feminine, une autrice. So here you see that ter becomes trice. So in that case, you're going to write une auteur with a midpoint. Then you're going to write the masculine form auteur, a midpoint, and then the feminine ending that changes from the masculine form. So une auteur, autrice is used to refer to a non-binary author or just to refer to an author in general to be more inclusive. All right, so now let's go over an application exercise. So fill in the blanks with the missing form. You can now pause the video to do the application exercise. All right, the feminine form of étudiant is étudiante. Repeat, étudiante. The non-binary or inclusive writing is étudiant with a midpoint and an E. Repeat, étudiant, étudiante. The masculine form of professeur is professeur without an E. Repeat, professeur. And the non-binary inclusive writing is professeur with a midpoint and an E. Repeat, professeur. The masculine form of auteur, autrice is auteur. And the feminine form of auteur, autrice is autrice. Repeat the two forms, auteur, autrice. The feminine form of cousin, repeat, cousin, is cousine. Repeat, cousine. And the non-binary inclusive writing is cousin with the midpoint and an extra E. Repeat, cousin, cousine. The masculine form of actrice is acteur. Repeat, acteur. And the non-binary inclusive writing of acteur, actrice is acteur, midpoint, trice. All right, so ter becomes trice, so you have to indicate the change of the ending. And repeat the non-binary form, acteur, actrice. The masculine form of prince, princess is prince. Repeat, prince. And the feminine form of prince, princess is princess. Repeat, princess. Number. Remember that in French, most plural nouns end with an S, like in English. However, unlike English, this final S is silent. Étudiant without an S and étudiant with an S are pronounced the same. So repeat the two words, étudiant, étudiant. Some nouns have irregular plurals that you will need to memorize. For instance, nouns ending with EAU take an X to form the plural instead of an S. Un bureau, a desk office, will have a plural with an X. Des bureaux, which means desks, offices. Note that the X is also silent, so make sure to repeat. Un bureau, des bureaux. Same thing for un tableau, a blackboard or whiteboard, basically a board, also used for a painting or like a chart, a table, tableau as well in English. Okay, so tableau ends with EAU, so in the plural you will have to write it with an X, des tableaux. Okay, so which means then boards or paintings. Again, the X is silent, so make sure to repeat the singular and plural form. Un tableau, des tableaux. Finally, note that nouns ending in S, X, and Z do not change forms in the plural. For instance, un fils, repeat after me, un fils, a son, will not change. It will be des fils, sons. Repeat, des fils. Same thing for une voix. Repeat, une voix, a voice. It ends with an X, so in the plural, it will be des voix. Repeat, des voix. Voices. You do not have to add anything else. Finally, un nez. Repeat, un nez. A nose will not change in the plural either. You will write and say des nez. Noses. Application. Fill in the table with the missing forms. So you can now pause the video and do the application exercise. The plural of affiche is affiche with an S. Repeat, affiche, affiche. The singular of livre is livre without an S. Repeat, livre, livre. The plural of bureau is bureau with an X. Okay, because bureau ends with EAU. Remember that words ending in EAU take X and X to form the plural. So repeat, bureau, bureau. The singular form of tableau is tableau without an X. Okay, so repeat, tableau, tableau. The plural form of étudiant is étudiant with an S. Repeat, étudiant, étudiant. The singular form of professeur, written in the inclusive writing, is professeur without the last midpoint and the S. Repeat, professeur, professeur. The plural of the non-binary writing or inclusive writing of étudiant, étudiante is étudiante, étudiante. So you just have to add a midpoint after the E and add an S. So repeat, étudiant, étudiante, étudiant, étudiante. The singular form of voix is voix. Remember that nouns ending in X, S, and Z do not change in the plural. The plural form of fils is also fils. So repeat, fils, fils. Remember that the plural of words ending in S, X, and Z do not change. And finally, the singular of ne is ne, with a Z as well. Repeat, ne, ne. Remember that the plural form of words ending in Z, S, and X do not change in the plural. Exercice 1. Write the feminine forms of the following nouns. You can now pause the video and do the exercise. The feminine form of étudiant est étudiante. Étudiant, étudiante. The feminine form of professeur is professeur with an extra E. Professeur, professeur. The feminine form of cousin is cousine with an extra E as well. Repeat, cousin, cousine. The feminine form of actor is actrice. So this is an example of an irregular feminine form. Repeat, acteur, actrice. And the feminine form of prince is princesse. Also an irregular form, like in English. Repeat, prince, princesse. Exercice 2. Write the plural forms of the following nouns. You can now pause the video and do the exercise. So the plural form of étudiant, étudiante is étudiant, étudiante with a midpoint and an S. The plural form of bureau is bureau with an X because bureau ends with EAU, and the plural of nouns ending in EAU is an X. The plural of fils is fils as well, because remember that the words ending in S, X, and Z do not change forms in the plural. Then the plural of tableau is tableau with an X. Remember that words ending in AAU take an X to form the plural. And finally, the plural of voix is voix as well with an X, because remember that words ending in S, X, and Z do not change in the plural. All right. Exercice 3. Translate the following words. You can pause the video and do the exercise. 1. Male student will be étudiant. Repeat, étudiant. Female student will be étudiante with an extra E at the end. Repeat, étudiante. A non-binary student will be étudiant, étudiante with a midpoint and an E. Repeat, étudiant, étudiante. Male teachers will be professeur with an S at the end, which will be silent. Repeat, professeur. Female teachers will be professeur with an E, which makes the feminine, and an S. Repeat, professeur. And the S is silent. Non-binary teachers will be professeur with a midpoint, an E, another midpoint, and the S to make it plural, and it will be pronounced professeur. Chairs will be chaise with an S. Repeat, chaise. Desks will be bureau with an X because bureau ends in a EAU. Repeat, bureau. Computers will be ordinateur with an S. Repeat, ordinateur. And paintings will be tableau with an X because tableau ends with an EAU and EAU words take an X as a plural. And if you have questions, feel free to write them in the comment section. I'll be happy to answer them. Au revoir!